How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you about this handsome guy, the Buddha belly plant, or Jatropha podagrica. Let's call it the Buddha belly plant, shall we? There's no prizes from where it gets its name from. Obviously, it's because of this bulbous looking caudex stem that actually acts as a reservoir for holding water for times of drought. So caudex is just a Latin name for trunk, basically, or tree trunk. And although this is obviously a stem, it's not a tree, it looks very much like a big mature tree because of the fatness of the stem. So that's all it is. A caudex is a type of plant that has basically big fat stems, and most of them are succulents for holding water. This one I think is particularly interesting. It has these massive leaves that are particularly big compared to the size of the plant itself, and they remind me of like fig leaves, you know? Really nice, big, glaucous leaves, really thick as well. And the new leaves come from the top of the plant, as you can see here. They're constantly producing new leaves, and at the top we even have some particularly interesting looking flowers that I believe are a good butterfly attractant as well. So if you have some nice weather in the summer, then you can keep this outside and it will be good at attracting insects and butterflies, which is nice. It's a tropical succulent, so it comes from the tropical parts of Asia, Africa and South America. And being a succulent, it's pretty easy to look after. A fairly regular watering compared to some succulents. I know a lot of succulents, especially ones that store water like this, a lot of people will be saying, you know, it doesn't need much water, it stores its own water, and that is true to us to a point. But while succulents can tolerate being left without water for extended periods of time, it doesn't mean that they're going to thrive like that. And this is one that definitely appreciates regular watering. I'm not talking about every day or even every 2 days, maybe once a week, which in the growing season is fairly regular for a succulent. So although it definitely doesn't want to be kept moist, it's, the caudex here is potentially going to be susceptible to rot, so you don't want the soil next to the actual caudex to be too damp, or else it will have problems. But having said that, you don't want it being left bone dry for weeks at a time. It's not going to really like that. So a regular water in the growing season when it's warm and sunny and it's happy, once a week is probably fine. In the winter you obviously have to cut that right back. It's not going to be actively growing, and that's when you get in danger of getting damp from the soil. So you need to be careful with that. You can help that by top dressing with some fine gravel or horticultural grit, and what that will do is actually keep a barrier between the damp soil and the actual stem of the plant, and that will help lessen the risk of rot. It looks quite nice too. Now this is in the soil that it came in. I fell into the classic garden centre trap of picking it up with the pot. They paired the pot with the plant, looking very nice, and if you pick the plant up and look for a price and you look underneath and it says £3, oh, that's an excellent price, you know, less than $5. That seems like a good thing. And then you get to the checkout and they pull the plant out of the pot and charge you for the plant and then for the pot. But you know what? The pot does suit the plant. It's nice colour combination. It's the right size. So I thought, you know what? Let me buy both. It looks pretty good. But having said that, let me turn it around again. The soil, I don't think the soil is the best, to be honest with you. There's not an awful lot of aggregate in the soil. There is a little bit of perlite, but not very much. So I'm probably going to let it dry out a little bit, and then I'll probably repot it with a little bit more perlite, a little bit of small grain grit as well, just to give it a little bit more drainage, because they will appreciate the drainage. They don't really want to be sat in soil that's holding on to the moisture for too long. And I watered this when I first got it, and it's still pretty well damp, and that's That's quite a few days ago now, so I'm going to say that it shouldn't be holding on to this moisture this long. Although in the summer at this time of year it's probably going to be okay, because when the sun comes out it will dry it out, but in the winter this is going to potentially hold on to that moisture for weeks at a time, and that's just not going to be healthy for this type of plant. So a slightly different potting mix I think is in order for this one. But yeah, I won't be changing the size of the pot or anything. It'll be fine. I'll be super careful not to disturb the roots too much as well. As you can see, it's actively flowering, and I don't want to, if you upset it too much with the roots, it could potentially drop off those flowers and go into a bit of a dormant mode or some sort of mild shock, which obviously we don't want to do. So that's a few things about the soil type and the watering. What else do you need to know? Well, this is actually classed as a poisonous plant, so if you have any plant munching pets in your household, you're going to need to make sure that this is kept well out of the way, or just swerve this one completely, to be honest with you. It's probably going to be okay, but you don't want to take the risk of your animal eating this and either getting an upset belly or worse. So keep it out the way, and even when you're repotting this, you know, it might be a good idea just to wash your hands afterwards or wear some gardening gloves. You know, these risks are relatively low with these sorts of plants. You probably need to ingest quite a volume to have any issues, but why take the risk? Something to be aware of if you're handling them, messing around with them. Just wash your hands afterwards and then you haven't got to worry. So we haven't talked about light. So it's going to like a sunny, well-lit position. Obviously it's got these big leaves, and the new ones coming out here could potentially get scorched by the sun, so you might want to avoid the harsh midday sun on the leaves. But see how you go. I mean, just looking at what I've got here, there's a bit of discoloration to some of these leaves, not much, so it might have got a bit of sun scorching, but you've got to really suck it and see what it's like for your position. So if you've got a windowsill that absolutely bakes all day long with sun, probably not a good idea. But if you've got a well-lit sunny position near a window where the sun comes past in the morning or the afternoon, it's probably going to be fine. Or if you want to put it outside in the summer, put it in a place which gets the morning sun or the afternoon sun, but not the really hot midday and early afternoon sun, probably be all right. But you know, it's not the end of the world if you put it somewhere and one of the leaves gets a bit scorched. Then you've learned you can move it out a little bit, move it further away from a window, or move it further into the shade if you're keeping it outside. So you know, you learn from observing the plant. As long as you don't just put it somewhere and forget about it, then just keep an eye on it and see how it's reacting. But most things happen fairly slowly with houseplants, so if you start to see some of the leaves discolouring, you've still got time to say, okay, maybe that's a bit too strong for it. But I think it's an interesting plant. You know, some really big leaves make it an interesting sort of focal point in your home. If you want to keep it as a house plant, I would recommend that, unless you're in a place in the world where you get summertime temperatures all year round. This big trunk makes me smile every time I see it. It's a cool looking thing, and if you've got the space for the big leaves, then I think this is going to be a very attractive plant to have in your living space. As you can imagine from this type of plant, it's pretty slow growing. It's going to increase this caudex as the leaves grow out. So, you know, the sort of size that you buy is probably going to be the size it stays for a fairly long time. Although in the wild they will grow to 7 or 8 foot high. So potentially, if you have it long enough and give it enough space, it may grow into quite a thing. But you know, you can keep it how you want it. If some of the leaves are getting too big and too long and bushing, then you can just cut them off. You know, it's constantly producing little leaves from the center here, so it really isn't a big deal if you need to remove some. And talking about the leaves, with these type of plants that grow out leaves from the center, the bigger leaves tend to come down further down and the new leaves come up. So if you see some of the lower leaves starting to turn yellowy for some reason, and then maybe bright brown and dying off, don't worry about that too much. That's just what is the natural cycle of the leaves. Okay, now if the younger ones are turning brown, that's for a different reason. But if the ones that have been there the longest slowly start to get lower and brown, then that's just naturally dying off, and the younger leaves are coming along to replace it. So don't worry too much if you see that sort of thing. It's the natural cycle of how these type of plants grow. One other thing to remember about this plant is it is a species that can potentially go dormant in the winter. So if it gets a little bit too cold, then you may find that leaves fall off. Again, don't throw it out. That's the last thing you want to do with these type of plants, because it may still be absolutely fine. It's just gone into a period of dormancy. So if it's the winter and it's a bit chilly, cut right back with the watering, stop the watering completely, because when it's in its dormant state, it's not taking on any nutrients or using that water. So stop the watering, put it out of the way where you can keep an eye on it, and just wait, and in time some new leaves will start being produced. And once you've got a few leaves, you can then introduce a bit of water slowly, and your plant will be right as rain once again. So with these type of plants, just give it time, because you know, it is part of their natural process to go dormant sometimes. So what do you think of this guy? Is he cute and interesting, or just a bit ugly and out of proportion? Let me know in the comments. I really like this thing. I'm always interested to sort of discover new types of plants, and I think these ones with the big bulbous trunks just add something different, and certainly in your living space it does add something a little bit special to a windowsill or something like that. So I really like it, but I'll be keen to hear what you think of these down in the comments. And if you've got some of these, let me know your experiences with them. Have you found them hard to look after? If you've got any tips to share with us that you found along the way, then please let us know down in the comments. I think that pretty much wraps it up for this one. Please give it a thumbs up if you found it useful, and subscribe if you're new around here, because we've got new houseplant related videos coming along every week. Well, that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye bye.